Good morning everybody, this is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It's October the 31st and we're looking at Hebrews chapter 5, and my password comes from the first two verses. We're only looking at 5 verses today, but the first 2 verses explain so much about the Bible. The writer to the Hebrews says, "For every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity." So the writer of the Hebrews is explaining something that's way outside of Christian experience today. None of us know what this is really all about in practical terms. Now the Hebrews did. They understood it very well indeed. In fact, when the writer to the Hebrews was speaking to them here, the temple was in full use, high priests existed, and the sacrifices were constant. But the writer is saying every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men in things pertaining to God. So these high priests and the rest of the priests, they were taken from among men. They were chosen by lot. Of course it was men that cast the lot, but it was God that determined the outcome. So they're ordained by God and by men that they might serve God on behalf of men, and serve men on behalf of God. Their job is twofold. Well, there's a number of jobs that they had, but 2 things in particular. They offer gifts. You see, a Jewish man would come to the high priest and he would bring his animal, and that animal would die, but that would be an act of worship. That would be an act of worship to the Lord. And if it was something that was a burnt offering, for example, that would come up to the Lord as a sweet smelling savour. This was something that cost the man a lot. Yes, it pointed forward to the cross, to the one sacrifice whereby God would finally be fully pleased. But in the meanwhile, it was an act of worship that cost the offerer a great deal. But there were other things too. Not only did he offer gifts, and this was an obligation in the Old Covenant. This is something that Christians know nothing about. This is something that Gentiles know nothing about. It's only something that the Hebrews understood. And they offer gifts, and they make sacrifices for sin. There was, you see, a sin offering. There was also the atonement once a year. So the high priest then, he is the one who brings the gifts and the offerings of Israel and presents them to the Lord on behalf of the people. He represents the children of Israel at the very mercy seat of God. But he also offers sacrifices for sins, and when a man in Israel sinned and his conscience smote him, so he would go to the high priest, and they would take the animal, and the sins would be confessed upon the head of the animal, and the animal would die. And in that way the Jew walked away with a clear conscience. He knew that his sin had been dealt with, and that he was restored to the God of Jacob in the Old Covenant. He walked away with a clear conscience until the next time that he sinned and his conscience smote him. And he says that these human high priests, they had compassion on the ignorant and on them that were out of the way. Now the ignorant and those that are out of the way are referred to as the sinners. They're the people that know nothing. They're the people that have forsaken the Lord their God. They've gone off the track. They are unclean and they are guilty of sin. He has compassion on them. And the reason why he has compassion on the ignorant and those that have gone out of the way is because he himself also is compassed about with infirmity. He has the frailty of human existence himself. He knows how easy it is for a man in Israel to slip into sin through omission or through commission. He knows that, and therefore he is able to have compassion on them. And by reason thereof he ought, as for the people, so also for himself, to offer for sins. If the high priest did not offer for your sins and you were a Hebrew, then you were damned. You are out of fellowship. You are unclean. You're forsaken of the Lord, forsaken of Israel, forsaken of your family. So the high priest had a key role in maintaining the old covenant and the relationship between every Hebrew and their covenant God. And the writer to the Hebrew points out that no man took this honour upon himself. This was not a self-appointed thing. He was called of God, as was Aaron. Aaron was called of God. He didn't think up the idea, and he certainly did not appoint himself. And then the writer to the Hebrews says, so also Christ glorified not himself to be made a high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee. He was ordained of God, his Father, to be the high priest of his people. There we are, wonderful passage. We're enjoying this, and we look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. God bless you. Bye for now.